Oh, welcome to the rabbit hole. I'm Ben, and this is Ashley. And we were actually already talking about some stuff, so we're just gonna
Right,
hop.
I was Xing out of the recording is in progress. Hi, I'm Ashley.
Yeah, and we were talking about, I guess, image just then about thinking how certain people um, search for deeper meanings in things, and the like the image doesn't really phase them as much, or at least they would like to admit, and how image and facade are kind of play in, and I wanted to talk about the the difference in the foundation versus the facade. So basically, and then not only like what do you see, but what are you investing in? So like as a person that's wanting to build a life in the long term, like what do you want to work on? And you just try to take a step back and look at yourself and say, okay, am I investing in my facade right now? Which is okay every once in a while, Um, like painting a house is great, it really cleans it up. Or am I working on the foundation, something that lasts longer, that's going to always be there, regardless of it's not going to be swept away as much. And so, like, I just thought that was a really cool little idea to ask myself throughout, you know, the months or years. I just
So do
like
you,
that idea.
do you feel comfortable or willing to share kind of how you've differentiated facade versus foundation and what goes into what category and how you
Yeah, yeah.
choose
So
and
it's mainly
invest
has
in
it
both?
mainly has to do with motives for me. So let's say I want to lift weights. So I say, well, why do I want to lift weights? Is it because I want to look fit and strong, or because I want to be fit
Hmm.
and strong? Do I want to work on my upper body solely and to look like I'm strong and not work on the important things? So you can break things down to what's the core, and for the body, it's the core. Um, so
Literally.
yeah, literally the core. It's like what's the foundation of an athletic, fit body? Um, and it's like, well, what are the movements that get me there? And so it's like, are you going purely for aesthetic? Are you going for the look, the image of I want to look strong, I want to look big, I want to look this and that, which plays its role, like in intimidation, I guess. But then it's like, do you want to um, be strong? Do you want to make it, I guess, more of a lifestyle? If it's we're talking about physical attributes or whatever you want here. Um, and like so with jujitsu, like that's one thing I love about jujitsu is there's no facades, and I think that's why I'm attracted to it, is because you can look like a scrawny person that's whatever, but and you don't have to say anything. You don't have to sell yourself or market yourself. All you have to do is show up, and everything speaks for itself. You can't fake it. Um, and so, like, do you look like you can win a fight, or can you actually win in the fight? Like those are like the fun little facade and foundation things that I think about. I've got a few other lists too.
I think for like do you want to look strong or be strong? It's almost like a which came first, the chicken or the egg situation,
Mhm.
because they're both going to happen, right? Like if you get stronger, you'll look stronger, and if you look stronger, you'll be stronger because you have to actually have muscle.
Yeah.
So I guess yeah, it's the which one.
Mm, well, there's a difference. So, and I think in working out, you can do isolated movements like bodybuilding.
Yeah,
I mean, you're just isolating your muscles. So, but you're not. It's not. You're not working. You're not exercising movements. And so each individual muscle is strong, but you're not even using your whole body. So everything's isolated, and you're not used to doing movements together. So then you're not really able to use these muscles as much, and it's not as coordinated.
well, right. It's like define,
Strong.
your strong is if you're looking at can you lift X amount of weight or can you do a challenging Pilates flow, kind of which one and they both serve their purpose, right? But I think it's interesting then to wonder why someone's attracted to one versus the other. Like, what is drawing some people to facade versus to foundation? And I'm just thinking about kind of like looking at myself over the past several years. I think I'm such more of a foundational person. Just I and then kind of where did that come from and where did that start and what made me more attracted to that as opposed to the actual facade. And I think a lot of it is family instilled.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um like my mom was always kind of harping that to me, and I think that's so important to teach people, especially from a young age, is that like who are you at your core and what are you about and how do you treat other people. And um I think that I think that, but then it's tricky because I'm thinking of people like, let's just call it what it is. I'll be politically incorrect because that feels fun. Like fake people, right? You've got the kind facade, but you don't have a kind foundation. So then kind of how do you discern if it's real or not? Which is kind of what we talked about, I think, a little bit, but it's always fun to circle back around and try to parse out. So what are your thoughts or comments on that? Or
Um,
people who like if I think we talked about clothes or and kind of looking past and seeing, and it's fine if you want to dress well and present yourself well. That's obviously totally acceptable. But kind of what reflects what's actually the foundation versus what is completely different than the foundation, right? Like a house has a terrible electrical wiring and you can't get any ounce of electricity to the house, but it has this beautiful, grandiose exterior,
yeah.
but it's not a functional house.
Yeah, there's a lot of metaphors that could be used with this. And I think it has to, like with the house, building a house is a great one.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because your body is a temple, so even that is an example. I'm thinking of a saloon, like an old-fashioned saloon where they have the big, sign that makes it look like a two-story building, and you go in there and it's not. And how facades really, really help with the first impression. It's kind of like when you go and like rent out an apartment or buy a house, and it's like, this is amazing, I love this. And then as soon as you become intimate with something, the true character of the person or that place, like a house that you're dealing with, you start noticing all of the flaws, all of the things that really matter. Once you form an intimate relationship with whatever object or person you're dealing with. And that's when and also when you're learning a sport. So I'll use jujitsu again as an example, or any sport or something like that, or dancing, whatever. You have the flashy tricks, the moves that that people, if they don't really know what's going on, they're like, wow, he's an amazing dancer, or he's so good. That's a crazy trick. It looks awesome. It's a highlight reel. But then it doesn't translate the deeper you go into the sport, because it's not fundamental. It's just a trend. It's just like it doesn't get you that far besides the first impression of what people think that are a little bit outside of it.
Which then, so while you were talking, it made me think of, okay, there's the foundation, and I think a facade is something that you project that is contradictory to the foundation, whereas I think I'm kind of thinking of the exterior more being representative of the foundation, and your exterior can match the foundation, and that's fine. Like if you are an accomplished person and you want to look professional to show up to work, I think that you can't really take little examples and think, oh, this is a facade. But I think a facade is anything that doesn't match the foundation. And so then the question is, why are you acting differently than the foundation? Is it because you're insecure in your foundation? Is it because there isn't a foundation and you don't really know who to be or what to be or whatever? And then how does that translate to behavior and maybe even the possibility of taking on different facades, like being kind of, you know,
Chameleon.
being a chameleon in different situations.
Yeah. Well, also it just takes work. Like just that's why this, and we're
Yeah,
also
the
using,
foundation is the hard part to build, right?
I mean, we're using a lot of abstractions here because like houses and stuff like that. But it is, we'll try to tie it into. If I can come with any examples to try to tie it into more examples. But yeah, it's hard work because we're really talking about character versus your persona that you project onto the world. If we're talking about for people.
Well, and I think in a truly like, and I think this is actually a psychology theory, but in a truly self-actualized person, the persona and the character are unanimous. Like they're the same thing. There's not this kind of differential of, well, who am I on the inside and who am I on the outside?
Mm,
But I think that it, like I said, I think it comes down to insecurity, or in the case of that, in terms of being who you are at your core and projecting that out into the world, I think it takes a level of comfort in yourself and belief in yourself. But then it's like you got to balance that without being cocky or arrogant or thinking I know everything and I'm this healed, self-actualized person. Like we're all works in progress. Oh man, it's complicated.
it is. And I think one. So if you look at like where do I put my time? What do I want to invest in? We like to try to play the long game for the most part, and so that's why if you want a house to stand for, or if you want to build it, if you're wanting to build your life and you're wanting to build a skyscraper, something that you can just keep going and growing, you have to do the hard work first, and you have to think long term. And so I think for investment, like where am I investing my time? And so if I'm constantly investing in upgrading a facade or making sure that people's like trying to control people's perceptions of me, or I'm basically investing and thinking about my time and my thoughts in the wrong basket. So if I invest, that sounded country right there. Uh, if I invest, if I invest in things, I guess it's more character things, then it's just going to be better off long term because then I've already um, like proven to myself that my foundation is strong, so I can trust it. So then you can go into the trust aspect of you can trust yourself and you can trust that others can rely on you and lean on you. Um, Versus if you're only focusing on like what it looks like or your character looks like in front of you. It's very abstract right now. I need to find some examples to tie it down, but you get the general gist. I just like that idea of like investing in like the bedrock or foundation of I guess it's more like what do I want to be rather than what do I want people to see me as.
I think you can still maybe though want people to see you as something that is congruent with what you are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been something that I've had to kind of play around over the past couple weeks being a teacher, laying down the law, classroom management. I am the adult, even though I'm a young adult, like I am an adult and you're the kids and I'm the one in charge, and kind of finding this dance between how do I still be the strict, stern, like, this is what we're doing, these are the directions, sit down, all of that, but also still being like, but math is still fun and this is still supposed to be a fun environment and a safe environment for you and you can come to me if there's a problem, and not not being the oh that's my friend and not being the oh that's the mean teacher that nobody wants to do anything with. So I don't know, but then also that kind of just made me think about, right, like we were talking about this just a few minutes ago before we started, but the growth and challenge, and as both of us being two people who enjoy growth and challenge and I think actively seek it out for the most part, um and for me just thinking about, there's a lot I like about growth and challenge and there's a lot that I don't like about growth and challenge. Like it's kind of this double-edged sword where it is invigorating and it's fun to step up and kind of push myself to my limit and see what all can I do and what am I capable of, whether it's physically, emotionally, mentally. And then also everything that comes with growth and challenge, like having to accept things that maybe are hard for me to accept. And also that boundary of, okay, I'm going to have to accept this as it is while still wanting to be. And I think this person who has, as just kind of who I am, these perfectionist and idealistic tendencies and beliefs. Like I want to believe in the good and I want to believe in the capability of people, but at the same time sometimes having to confront like this person just might not do their work, and that just is what it is. And even though I'm sitting there like, oh, but if you just did this you could reach your potential, and then reminding myself like that's not mine to project. Your potential is your potential, that's not for me to. But then also coming back around and being like, yeah, but I am in a position to be like, I believe in you and this is what I think you're capable of. And that's kind of tricky too, like not projecting too much on, and also remembering like these are 11-year-olds who probably aren't thinking about their future really, and that's okay because they're 11, but also wanting to push them and challenge them and make them realize that they are capable and that they can do things. And that's kind of this whole tricky, I don't even know how to begin establishing those things. And so step number one, just make a list of clear, actionable, cemented goals that I'm like, okay, I can't keep saying that I'm going to do this because this is this and this is this math teaching. Like it's way too abstract. And then I don't have any objectives or deliverables for myself to say, am I meeting what I'm setting out to do? So I think that's going to be this weekend's project for me. And maybe we can check back in on Sunday.
Hmm.
Like, what does this look like for me? And how do I reach and how do I set attainable goals? And just crazy how much it ties into things that we've talked about in other times and episodes.
Yeah, I want to say something about the potential thing. I was thinking about, well, we always talk about helping and enabling, but also there's you also have to help yourself before you can help others. And you're not God. You don't have all the energy and all of the you know um, help to give, because you have to have boundaries, like you said. And it made me think of several teachers in high school and middle school that once they had kids, their energies were directed elsewhere. I'll say that. And so it's clear that once you like it becomes like a priorities of who am I going to invest in. And when you in this case, a few of the teachers that I've had, when they don't have kids, they're able to pour all of, their slightly extra emotion or passion into the potential of their students. And then when they have kids, it's like, I only have so much to give, and I'm only one person, so I'm gonna direct this more towards my own kids.
Yeah.
And so it's like you want to people want to save the world, or but that just requires lots of time and also more one-on-one time, or at least intimate time that's hard to get in a classroom. And so it's like you want it's awesome to be an inspiring teacher, but it's also exhausting. So it's a balance for sure, and you're going through right now.
It is exhausting. And also just this recognition of like, I am outnumbered by 96. Like that's a huge number of the number of people that there are to me. And then just kind of like reminding myself that, I can't, I'm one person, like you said, and it's not reasonable to set, oh, this is a huge thing, which I know we've talked about. So I'm just going to bring it back up. But like, what are reasonable expectations to set for myself? And I can't set the expectation that every single one of my kids is going to get an 100 in the class, because I'm setting myself up to be disappointed. And this is something I've had to work on, just with being kind of a perfectionist and wanting to always strive for the highest achievements and everything, and really reining that in and asking myself what is reasonable to expect of myself in a healthy way. And I think that's clause at the end, that like in a healthy way, where I'm not on overdrive and working 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. and then doing an hour of yoga and then reading, and then maybe I'll make it to bed and then get back up in 2 hours and do it all over again. Because obviously that's not sustainable. Like that's a big fire that's going to blow out really fast. And but then also like what you're saying, and just kind of being one person, another way I like to think about that, and what's been really helping me, is that like compassion, empathy, all of these things are finite resources, and you can run out. Like you can exhaust your supply of those things if you're not replenishing, kind of the like, you can't pour from an empty cup
Hmm.
analogy.
Yeah, I was
So
I was working downtown today, and in a rough area. There's lots of homeless people, just lots of it was lots of sadness, lots of mental, problems. And it just made me think, the homeless problem is like one of those classic examples where it's I mean, it's unsolvable, it seems. But it has to do with, I was thinking about the balance of like wanting to help people and then trying to find a way to do it, because some people need so much help and they're not capable, they're not even in the same world or reality. So it's just like, you know, just how do you even go about that? And then, like you said, with like we have institutions, that's where groups and institutions come into play, because if you can balance it out, it just takes a lot of pressure off of one person. But then, there's problems with institutions as well. But
And then the system is the problem, right?
system,
Ah,
blame them.
like
Yeah.
you have to believe in the good. Um, I know that's another big thing that I've had to really reevaluate as a teacher is like I am in control of the kids for 45 minutes a day, but that's it. That's all I get. And then they go home and I turn them loose and say, do this homework. But once they step out of that school, man, it's out of my control. And I don't know what they're going home to. And some of the parents are wonderful and forthcoming and are sharing things that help me understand the situation or understand, like, okay, maybe this kid does need a grace period because of whatever. But, then maybe the kids who need it even more, they're not going to have the parents that are going to say that. And then it's just this whole cycle of, man, it's so complicated. And being like, okay, well, I know that you got this in class, but then you go home and I'm not there to help you. And maybe you don't have parents who can help you. And um, it's just a completely new world of seeing where all of these people are coming from, which is very eye-opening and can also, I think it's boosted and worn down my compassion because, right, like I'm hitting this massive compassion game of like trying to understand where these students are at and where they're coming from, and that can be draining, but then also seeing like, wow, there are so many situations and this is just a snapshot of the world. I mean, like this is only one little sector of I don't know how many kids there are, like 500 maybe. And that's such a small proportion of what is really going on, so it's almost mind-boggling, and I just don't think it's comprehensive. I don't think you can comprehend it.
Hmm. Gosh, it's crazy.
Like it's
96.
I just don't think that the human brain has the capacity to wrap around, and even like every single, and then just the fact that every single one of those kids has a different, like every single person has a different story, but there's a lot of similarity and crossover, which makes it a lot more, you know it makes it a little bit easier to take a bite out of, as opposed to, wow, nobody is the same. Like, yes, we're all basically 99% the same, and that makes it feel a little bit easier. But
Yeah, we're more the same than we are different.
oh, I saw this other thing too that I really, really liked, and it was saying, like the expression, we're all in the same boat. And it was like, no, we're not all in the same boat. We're all in the same ocean. And not everyone has access to a boat. And not everyone has access to a life jacket or, you know, backup water supply. Like, obviously, those are metaphors for things, not, like literally water. Although I suppose it very well could be. But I really like that metaphor of like, oh, we're not all in the same boat because not everybody has access to a boat. But yeah, I think that being compassionate is draining, but I think it's necessary to be a good person.
Yeah.
I think Buddha was right about that. You definitely need a lot of compassion.
Yeah, but it's just easier though to just see the world and like kind of in black and white, and that just makes it a lot easier so you don't have to deal with people, right? Simplify the world there, and then that's a good way too.
I think it's too hard. Like, I think for maybe you and me, it would be too challenging of a task to even simplify the world because we wouldn't know where to start. Um but I think, yeah, I think you can definitely overdo it in a way. Like, I don't know if you've ever just gone somewhere, or I've had moments like that. I think one of them was at the NC State Fair, ironically enough. And I was just kind of doing this 360, and I was looking around. And I was like, every single one of these people has a life that's like just as complex as mine, and they've got complex relationships, and they've lost people, and they've had amazing joys, and whatever. And I don't know a single thing about any of it. And your brain can't handle it because I started getting into that kind of like, like that wow that happens in movies. That totally was happening to me. So you have to find some way to acknowledge it without perseverating. Like, yes, that's a person, move on. Not like, I wonder what happened to this person, and what did this college course, and did that professor change their life, and then what happened with here, and then I bet you lost someone, or like you can create all these stories, which I think is why so many writers just go sit at a cafe and just choose someone and write a story about them.
Hmm.
um
Yeah, it's crazy.
isn't it? You can't even conceptualize it. Like, it's too crazy. I can barely keep up with my friends' lives, then
That's why we have to simplify things down to small talk, to sports, some of the basics, the bare bones.
it was really cold this week.
The weather is always good.
The sun's out, though, and the weather, it's constant. It's always there. That's always something to talk about. Oh, it's sunny. Oh, it's rainy. It's
How's
hot.
life? How's life? Good, man. Going good.
You have to simplify it to one word, because if you sit down like I just did before we started airing this and put it all out, it's just too overwhelming.
And that's why we need a facade, ladies and gentlemen.
So
Because
all of this is our reason.
we have to keep things hidden, not hidden, but I think I saw a comedy sketch. It's like it's okay to lie. It's okay to lie every once in a while because like basically you just don't want to overload people, and you got to find the right people to be complicated and complex with, because that is a lot. It's a lot to process and be empathetic towards everybody. So it's just like you just have your people you go to. Any other people you don't putting on a front is a strong word, but more like um, put a smile and you don't have to be so serious or go into the complexities of your life or you know, small
I think
talk.
that's the thing too that I always just have to laugh at. It's like I like we as humans tend to overcomplicate things a lot, I think, and just kind of come back to the basics, which is why grounding is so important. And not like grounding a kid, but grounding as in, get in touch with the five senses, get in touch with reality, do something that's going to overpower one of the senses. So you're forced to come into the body. Like, cold is great, smells are great, oils, cinnamon, whatever it might be, like those types of things. That really just it almost is like a brain zap in a way. You just can't think for a moment because you were so drawn into this sensation that's happening right now. But yeah, I think that's so interesting. I've thought a lot about that small talk, kind of like, or you see someone and you're like, hey, how are you? But like, is that genuine? Is the how are you genuine? Are you
Yeah.
really asking? Like, if I looked at you right now and said, how are you? That's a lot different than
How are you?
hey, how's it going? That's my, like, I say that all the time. That's my go-to line. Hey, how's it going? I'm like, I don't know how it's going, and we're passing, and they're gonna say good, and I'm gonna say, oh yeah, everything's great. As I feel like the dog, like that, little meme that's like the dog with all the flyers around it, and it's like, it's fine, everything's fine.
Well, yeah, I think it's good for the social interaction and just smiling at people, and like you can kind of create an energy by like intentionally putting yourself in a good mood that's possible. Um, but when you said to talk about the senses, um, about smells, it definitely makes me want to get more into like I guess different smells and how that's a whole nother way of um, like I don't know, just it seems like there's a lot of enjoyment in that, like surrounding myself around interesting smells that bring back interesting memories.
Yeah.
That's yeah, I like that. And another thing is you said bring back, you like bring yourself to the present moment, and just how often we are like, what's it called? I guess disassociating, where you're just not really, you're not really in the present moment.
Yeah.
I remember one time in college, I remember I was sitting in my me and Dave were share a room, and so I was just sitting there. We were reading, or like he was reading a book in his bed. I was reading a book or something like that, and I just kind of stopped reading. And I looked around. I was like, "We are in a room right now." Like it was one of those like crazy moments where you're fully present, and I was like, I haven't been aware of like just the room and like so long. 'Cause it's like such a funny thing, but it's like I want to know like the percentage of how often I'm just zoned out or in my own world, um, day to day, and like I guess that's just what happens when you get comfortable. Like so, if I was at the apartment for 2 years, and it's just crazy that happens. That like you you're not even aware. It doesn't make sense.
I had something like that happen and I was like, wow. I mean, and obviously it had, right? Like this is common structure, but I was like, has that corner always been like a 90-degree angle? It's just the little things that you realize that you're noticing and just how many finite details we overlook. And it's the brain's like amazing way of filtering all this information that you're chronically taking in and having to make these split second, like less than, we can't even conceptualize how fast this is happening for your brain to be like, yep, don't pay attention to that, pay attention to that. Nope, not important. Yep. Like how much we're actually filtering in that isn't even representative. Like the picture we're seeing isn't even everything because your brain just can't handle it. So
But then, like you said, we try to create more. Then we use, and then is we don't see the complexities of the world, but then we try to create like stories in our head about different people. That's not like just imagination. And so it's funny.
like you try to create all the complexity your brain works so dang hard to filter out. We just bring right back,
Yeah.
fill it up some way. I know it's so, oh my goodness. Yeah. It's amazing all that filtering that happens. And then what happens kind of when you run out of frontal lobe capacity and like your ability to filter, and then even that's filtering information or emotion or whatever. The brain. And also then trying to figure out like, okay, what do I put back into my body slash brain to fill it back up? Like how do I get it nourished and get it back? And obviously we talk about it. It's sleep, it's water, it's exercise, it's diet, it's maintaining important relationships, all of those things. But like we've talked about before, those are all the first things that start to go.
Dang it.
You're not even giving yourself a fighting chance. It's like this feedback loop from hell kind of thing.
Yeah, the feedback loops are really interesting. I think I don't know. I was maybe it was Jordan Peterson, or I've been listening to this one guy named Tom Bilyeu, I think is his name, but he's pretty interesting too, and he's really good at interviewing people that are also in the same domain, and just talking about the negative feedback loops. And one of them that uh, I I don't know much about it, but I've always wanted to avoid it. Is the maybe it's for everybody, but the shame feedback loop where you are isolate. Oh, it's isolation. The isolation feedback loop. So where it's like you don't feel like you belong or something, so you kind of distance yourself, and then when you distance yourself, it makes you like less connected to people, and then it's like boom, 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 and you go down, and you're like, I can't go back now. I've already gone this far. Or it's like, yeah,
Yeah. Man, it's
those are
those snowball effects are so real. Or, it's like I can think of so many examples off the top of my head where that happens. And it's hard to escape. It's hard to find like where in the circle you can kind of jut out and not, you like, all right, I'm just gonna stay on. We're not gonna keep taking the tangent. We're just gonna keep going that way. But it's hard and how they just the two feed each other, or those circles are multi-dimensional. They have multi-dimensional points, and it's like everything just kind of feeds each other, and then you've got this web and you're kind of just trapped in the web and there's no way out.
I I wrote this thing today, so I actually put in my 2 weeks today or yesterday. But and then it gave me like a whole new. I guess it gave me more momentum. So it gave me a slightly new perspective of like urgency. Whenever you know things aren't going to last or things are about to change, that snaps you out of whatever like I wouldn't say trance, but um, I
Like
wrote
routine or
yeah, it is like you can see the world with a little bit more like a different like possibilities open up. Your brain's like, ooh, I can. I'm not in a routine anymore. I won't be. So I have to. So it's like, why do I only wake up when it's time to go? Like, why do I like only see the I don't know. It's
no, I do know what you're saying though, because I just had a similar thing with giving my 2 weeks at my last job and getting ready to move to this job. Like even like my walk into work every day was different. It wasn't this like, route that or road like I can't explain it, but I know what you're saying. It's like everything feels different because you know that change is coming. You're like, ah, this is my like in 6 more days. This will be the last walk that I take this way. It's just I don't know. I think it becomes more temporary and we realize we're coming out of a routine. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But anyway, continue.
no, that's exactly what I was thinking. It's I
It's
think
weird to explain.
we were talking about there's ways we always talk like gratitude and like journaling and stuff like that, but I think one of the best ways of feeling gratitude is, which is funny because there's like you'd think that the impermanence of things sucks a lot of times, and so the impermanence and the permanence of things can be viewed in positive and negative lights, because if you build something up you want it to stay, but then if it stays you take it for granted, and so but when you know it's going to go away, only love the sun when it starts to snow. Only miss I don't
Only
know.
know you love her when you let her go.
Yeah, exactly. And so that temporary, that the feeling of the being temporary, it just forces you, or like it forces me at least, to be grateful. Like I don't have to work on it. Like I don't have to try to be grateful. It just happens. It's like, oh man, I gotta soak this in before I'm gone. Or yeah, I think that's a great way to get out of loops, is to introduce change. That's um, I guess change can be good or bad, but yeah, like to snap yourself out of whatever routine you're in, or
Wait, I think I might kind of the pattern and the routine of it lures us into this false sense of security and stability and permanence that isn't really real because it's nothing is permanent. But we think that it is because we've gotten into this routine of doing it. And then imagine how much that builds up like over people who have been in the same job for 20, 30 years. I mean, I think that's what it is. You do the same thing and you get lured into this sense of permanence that isn't really true. It's your day-to-day life and it's your routine and it's your habit and that is what it is. And then all of a sudden there's this kind of like, you put the dice in the Yahtzee thing and shake it up and it's like, oh wait, yeah, we're gonna roll something new today. It's not gonna be another five.
mm,
And that maybe it's that like shaking and you know that this one isn't gonna be a five, it's gonna be a four. And that but that there's something really like what you're saying. It's hard to explain it, but I think the word that I'm thinking of is it's kind of invigorating. Like everything seems a little bit brighter and you get a little bit more okay with it. And you're like, oh yeah, I appreciate this part of my job. And it makes us realize the things that we like. Like I think when you're in the permanence of things, it's easier to see the bad stuff or like oh, this is so annoying. And then when you realize that you might lose it, it's like, oh, I really like this.
dang it. Yeah.
Done. Like I'm gonna really miss this person. I just went through this like 3 weeks ago. I was like, this is so hard to conceptualize losing, but here we are. So yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
I also think it's a time. So like basically everyone has mental blocks. Everyone falls into not only daily routines but mental routines.
Totally.
And so I think whenever a change happens, everything's shifted, and things will settle down again. It's like in those moments of suspension, I find um, that's when I want to. This I don't know if I actually, or like if it's just an idea or I'll actually do it, but like try to find the beliefs that are I hold that of myself that I think are permanent about myself, and so and try to shake those up, the ones I want to shake up. And, and like so I want to take more risks and kind of pushing and finding out what beliefs do I want to have about maybe the world, maybe about myself, maybe about others, and then what beliefs, and then just figure out what beliefs I want to have based off of the good, I guess, the best that I can conceptualize it, and then what beliefs do I think I do have that I think I have, and then in those moments of suspension where um, uh, you're kind of out of the rut. Um, I feel like that's a good way to. It's a good switch up where you could maybe shake those around and try new things in that mind state. You know,
Yeah,
where
totally.
everything seems a little bit more exciting and new and novel.
Yeah, and challenging beliefs about yourself. And I think that beliefs are only as strong as they are challenged in a lot of ways, like um I know with me, I typically think of myself as a very patient person. And a lot of people have told me you're a very patient person. And let me tell you something, being a middle school math teacher has really challenged that patience.
Yes.
It is hard to remain patient when you're like, this is what we just did. And I just told you to stop talking. And now you're still talking. And I have to correct you again. Like it, and I looked at my class and I almost felt myself getting ready to scream. And I'm not a screamer. I was like, I am out of patience, friends. Like it has been 2 weeks and you've used it all up, and I've got none left. So sit down and stop talking. That's
Oh,
it.
lay on the law.
But like getting to that level, kind of reminding myself, and I'm not like, me, I'm not a pushover in any way, but getting that level of like, okay, yeah, I'm angry and it's not fun and I don't like being
Y'all
angry.
don't, y'all don't piss me off.
Yeah. Like, God, what are you not getting? What is so hard about sit down and don't talk, for the love of goodness and all that is gracious? Um, but anyway, and so kind of challenging some of those beliefs. And I also have really challenged, like I was like, oh man, getting to school at 7 a.m. and leaving at 4 p.m. every day. That sounds like a really long day. And blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you, it flies by. It flies by. I get there at 7. I look at my watch. It's 12:30. Next thing I know, I'm walking in my car and I'm going home. Like I think my concept of time is like way off after I've gotten into this job. It goes by way too fast.
I think that's a good thing.
I mean, the day flies. I'm not sitting around like, oh man, I've got 2 more hours in this meeting, like, which is kind of what I used to think. Um, but I think it's always good to be challenging those beliefs and saying, like, is this a sound belief? And do I have reason to support this belief? Or is this kind of
Yes. Yes. I,
like, which I'm constantly doing, even just with ideas and thoughts, like, all right, this is an intrusive thought. Do I need to buy into it? No. Maybe yes. Do I have any reason to believe or buy into that thought? Yeah, actually. Like, right. It's like, okay, maybe yes, the fire alarm is going off. Therefore, I get out of the building. Like, that's a sound belief. But, kind of sitting there like, this feels something like, but I have no reason really to believe it. So probably I'm just overthinking. Um, so anyway, all of those things are super interesting. And I'm constantly like, that's just a day in the brain of Ashley. Is this a sound thought? Like, do I have reason to believe this? Is this a sound belief? Do I need to challenge this belief? What could I put in here to say, oh, well, look at every other night of your whole life. This hasn't happened. That's a lot of data that says it's probably not going to happen tonight. Like, I have this weird, and my mom has it too. So I don't know if I just inherited it from her, but like when I hear a plane or a helicopter that sounds really close, I just instantly panic that it's going to fall on my house and crush me. And I don't know
realistic.
why.
Very realistic.
it's terrifying. Don't mock me. Like, and we kind of look at each other like, did you hear that? And wait, hold on, timeout, freeze. That's another huge thing. That's been become my code word in my classes. I'm like, freeze. So it's seeping into daily behavior. That's another thing, looking at cues from other people, like, right? Like I'll hear the plane and I'm kind of like, all right, well, she isn't looking around yet. But then the second her head jolts up, man, I'm like, all right, I know it. Let's get away. We
Yeah.
got to run as fast as we can because that plane's going to be humongous and there's going to be a ton of flying debris. So get your tennis shoes on and run.
There.
And then my mom and I both kind of look at each other and we're like, the plane probably isn't going to fall on the house. I think I hear it getting further away. Like, okay, this is probably going to be fine. But so, kind of asking myself, like, okay, 100% of the time, 100, 1 out of 1 times. like, I've heard planes and they haven't fallen on my house. So I probably don't need to believe it's going to happen today.
Those what ifs though.
I know, but they're so powerful, Ben. They're so powerful.
We talked about it before, but the Mark Twain quote of like, I'm an old man and I've experienced a great many troubles, but all of them have happened in my head, or something like that. Like, basically, the scenario planning is just not helpful.
I think it's just the planning into the future. Like, I have safety plans for like everything. I'm like, all right, you're driving. This is what I do with myself. I'm like, all right, you're driving. Your car goes off a bridge. The bridge is over water. What do you do? Step number 1. I'm watching YouTube videos. Like
the doomsday prep. Well, there's something to say about being prepared for events, but then you have to ask, well, how likely is this event going to happen? And I could also just avoid. It's much easier to avoid the event altogether, and there's a lot of ways to do that. And that's why I think, like, I just listening like Thomas Sowell or some of the people that are very, reason and data based, data driven. It doesn't really grip me emotionally because data is pretty dry. But like looking at statistics of like, these are the chances of this and that, these are the chances of this and this, and this is what you have to do to be like to get from point A to point B, like stripped to the bare bones, like
Yep.
outside of the motivational forces required for it. And so you have to look at evidence, right?
Yep.
That's going back to beliefs in yourself, which also goes back to the foundation. You have to sell, and I guess more of a story as well. You have to sell yourself, not just others, but I think the most, and this also goes just into sales and marketing. If you want to, like, you have to sell yourself on the product first, before you can believe it. And so you say, okay, these are the beliefs about myself, and like I don't want this belief to be around. So it's like, or this the habit or action. So it's like you have to build, oh yeah, like facade. If I'm putting off a confidence, without putting in the work, that's kind of a facade. But if I've done the hard work, built it right, tested myself, stress tested whatever belief I want to believe about myself, I've built competence in whatever area I want, at whatever area it is. It could be a skill or a personality trait or like a character thing. Then whenever it gets tested, whenever an earthquake comes, something shakes, some natural disaster comes, I will be ready because I've prepared. I have ran some of the what if scenarios. I've stress tested it in a real experience. And from that comes a foundational confidence in whatever area I want to do. But that came with a lot of hard work before that. And yeah, it's based off of like whenever you have those intrusive thoughts, maybe of like, this is who I am. You say, no, that's just not true. I've put in the work. I've done this, and you have the reasons lined up, ready to go. You're like, nope, I've proved to myself this over and over again, for the good ones. And then sometimes I will have mental blocks in certain areas where like I have to. I guess I'm still I have to prove to myself certain things, which can be positive and negative at times. But yeah, like the building confidence based off of evidence and reason.
Right on.
That's the way to go about your beliefs about yourself and the world.
Right, because it comes with this, like what we talked about, challenging the belief or supporting it, and which one is it going to be? And
Yeah, and and that's why it's so good, because I think a lot of times you don't know what's going on until you get personal experience with some skin in the game, like where you're actually doing things instead of reading in a book. So it's like I have these noble, beliefs about the world, and I really want the world to be a certain way. And you can have this naive view of the world, whatever it is, when you're younger and you've been in a bubble of protection from your parents, hope, which is a good thing. And then when you get outside, you're like, dang, I really wanted that belief to be true, but it's not, like, based off of my experience of this pocket of reality that I'm living in. And that's frustrating when beliefs I want to have about the world um, get broken. Um, you
Yeah,
know,
it's
like
disheartening too.
all men are created equal. Well, it depends on what you mean by equal, because maybe in God's eyes, like some things just is just unfair. Like some things are unfair, and like you have to accept that that is a reality.
Yeah,
Like, and then you want to believe something. You're like, no, that's just based off of my experiences. It's just not true.
and
Um,
that's I think that that's what's so confronting, and what I was talking about earlier with the like it forces you to accept things that you don't want to accept. And
it sucks at that time,
it's
and it's
tough,
great at times.
man.
It's great at times. But here's the thing: your reality and my reality is a small fragment based off of whatever pockets or subcultures we've been a part of that's shaped our perception of reality. So, one idea that I just always think about is there are other worlds out there that operate by different rules, and it's right under my nose, and they're everywhere. There's different circles of people interacting with each other that's not the rules not the reality I live. And I think that's why people can have bad beliefs about the world, because based off of their experience in that certain pocket, it's true. So you could say every man is this, and that every time based off of my experience, it hasn't been wrong. So they have evidence to back up. Let's say this woman that's had a terrible cycle of dating men, or like men or something, for example. They've got boom, 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 boom. They've got reasons lined up on deck because every single man that they've been with has been this way. And so that's their reality. And then so it's like, and I think about myself like, okay, there's potential out there that even if my experience has been proven wrong, maybe I'm just in a bad pocket of reality of like a group. And
Yes.
that's really exciting to believe because it gives hope for any of the negative beliefs. Um, and that hope is crucial because then it gives you something to look forward to get out of it. And it's yeah, that's I think that's such a good belief to have because there's so
Ex-
many.
yes. The
Yeah.
hope is everything. That's what I was getting at earlier, saying like I am an idealist. Like I want to believe in the good. And I think that what's hard though sometimes with challenging those beliefs is like if you've been in that situation where you only have negative experiences to draw from, maybe it's too hard to conceptualize experiences outside of yourself and to think like because for you, yeah, the belief you hold is true. You're like, yep, that I this supports it, this supports it, this supports it, this supports it, he supports it, like you can make your whole list, but then you have to kind of take the bird's eye view and think, but maybe not. That's not necessarily true. And it's hard to kind of reach that evidence-based conclusion when your evidence is such a small fragment of like the entire database.
Hmm. And that's when it comes down to exposure and putting yourselves out in new like areas, but also you don't want you to be too vulnerable and go out into places where you have no idea, which is why it's important to have mentors and guides, which I would love, just the idea of having a mentor. So I think so cool to me. Or it just makes the path much easier, whatever you go through. Yeah.
Well, I think that's an awesome place to leave this one on that message of hope.
Hmm.
I think like that's definitely how to wrap this one up as we kind of like went into some of the deeper, but I mean, hope is the thing. It gets me through. It sounds like it gets you through. I think, we cling to it and we have to have it. And it's such a powerful, like I read this awesome thing that kind of even like setting an alarm clock for the morning is such an act of hope because you're putting so much faith and trust in the fact that tomorrow's going to come and you're going to wake up and see it. And like I don't know, if not for hope, kind of
Mhm. Mm,
how would you exist? I don't know how I really don't have an answer for how I would. I think it would get real dark real fast.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I'm just leaving on that. Hope.
Stay hopeful,
Yeah.
friends.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time.